Imagine you are waiting for the bus in the morning. Coffee in one hand, morning cat in the other. Then suddenly a bare frame rolls up. No windows, no seats, no driver. Just two things, a giant jet engine and a nose canister strapped to the corner. You still hop in, because why not? And what happens next? Well, that's a mystery. Bus routes in BeamNG started as a meme category. Slow, simple and easy to understand. Precision and patience were the only skills you needed, at least in the beginning. But over time, this slow grind evolved into something far more chaotic. From default buses to stripped frames to rocket boosters. And today, I will explain and showcase this progression, showcase the actual madness of bus routes. It all started in 2018 with the patch 0.12, Get Busy. This major update introduced a new vehicle, Wentworth DT40L, a bus, and with it gameplay mode, Bus Routes, a simple drive across the east or west coast with stops at the bus stops. Simple and easy to enjoy, it had strict and normal modes for stops and overall was not that interesting, especially in comparison to the campaign that was built around this same vehicle. Hustle and Bustle was a first leap forward and a true showcase of what is technically possible with this vehicle type. The bus is durable and pretty quick, yet it lacks acceleration and its turning radius is extreme. At this point in time, nobody even considered speedrunning BeamNG until early 2019, when the scene started picking up traction. Pizza delivery, airfield showdown and many other scenarios started to get competition, but not bus routes. They were in-game and some tried to complete them fast, but without any real competition, positruns were just left alone, from the west to the east coast, from Italy to Utah. There are many reasons for this, and the main one is time. Almost every route took at least 3 minutes to complete, some went up to 15. And when your challenge is basically just driving in an almost straight line for that long, well, people lost interest fast. That is, until the speedrunning scene evolved. It all started slowly and far from bus routes. One window, a simple bumper removal or fuel reduction. Piece by piece, every vehicle in the game became not only lighter, but faster, with superior acceleration, nitro and tunes. Bus routes finally got something interesting to offer, and players noticed. By this point, more bus routes were added: Utah, Jungle Rock, Italy, and even the first version of Gridmap. Pandora's box was opened, and an endless grind had started. Let's look into buses themselves. This vehicle type has many downsides. After all, this is not a race car. It's huge, weighs roughly 12 tons, and worst of all, it's painfully slow. Acceleration, deceleration, and max speed, basically everything that can be put into the speed category is a problem. But as expected, everything can be fixed with a bit of time and speedrunning ingenuity. And so, the race for best speedrunning setup has begun. While it was clear what would be the superior option, speedrunners took several years to get to truly mad setups. An almost bare frame without windows, without seats, and sometimes even without a bus body at all. During that period, two major tunes were created and used. Lighter and easier to control bass only with nitro, and a heavier version with nitro and jet. In both cases, however, the bus was surprisingly nimble, especially for how big and bulky it was. Because of its rearward weight bias, it was possible to really pivot it with the handbrake to break traction. During that time, jet was seen as something really useful, but problematic. At the end of the day, this is bus routes. They are long and you are bringing 20 seconds of jet. Even with this downside, it was superior to default bus setups. However, it was also heavy. In comparison, the nitro-only version was much lighter. The difference is huge, almost 2 tons of pure weight gun. These years of evolution were crucial for bus routes. Dozens of players tried to grab and hold records, but one stood out like a streetlight over a lonely bus stop. Blitzen. He was simply better than everyone else. His understanding of this vehicle was unreal. And the reason was simple. He was a bus driver in real life. After all, what's better than relaxing after a long day behind the wheel of a real bus than driving a bus in BeamNG? Sadly for Blitzen, he was too late to try one of the longest versions of bus routes, the old Jungle Rock. Those missions could take up to 25 minutes to finish with the default setup, but after the overhaul, those routes were not reintroduced. Still, everything else was on the table, and he gladly took the challenge. His first tunes were as simple as it gets. Just grab the default hero setup with Jato, and clearing a 5, 10, 15 minute bus route became a matter of persistence. At this point, I want to showcase the actual power of Jato on a bus. Since these challenges are filled with mandatory stops, the bus loses huge chunks of time just trying to accelerate. Jato easily fixes this big issue. A quick burst can save seconds, even minutes. But there is a catch. You only get 20 seconds of fuel. Micromanaging it is a must. Overspend it and you lose time. Or worse, miss a checkpoint entirely. And on the maps like Italy, where bus stops are so precise they feel pixel perfect, Jato becomes both a blessing and a curse. Gridmap was Blitzen's first target. The original version had 2 bus routes, and while they look weird and not all that interesting, this was exactly where he managed to dominate. Pipes 1 was his route, and the world record was waiting for him. Gridmap V1 was pretty empty, but still interesting in its own way. With around 10 stops and plenty of long straight sections, it was the perfect playground for Jato. Blitzen crushed the previous default setup time by 1 minute and 20 seconds. Of course, others wanted a piece of the record, and eventually they got it. A new tune appeared, full weight reduction, nothing left but the bare frame. Even fuel was cut to the bare minimum. For skill, this meant an easy 30-second improvement, but for Blitzen it was just another opportunity. With the new setup and a lot of practice, he took the record back, setting a beautiful sub 5-minute time. For better or worse, that ended up being the last run ever submitted to this category before the devs removed first version of Gridmap. Technically it's still playable, but nobody is trying to beat those old records anymore. But as mentioned earlier, bus routes were present on almost every map in BeamNG, and while one door closed, many others were still open. West Coast and East Coast quickly became the most popular. Haiku, Blitzen and plenty of other runners were constantly fighting for records there, testing new setups and ideas. Blitzen's tenacity was unmatched, and he managed to claim almost every single one, over 20 records on just those 2 maps. Thanks to his skill and deep understanding of the bus, these times were soon considered very hard, and so bus routes once again were silent. For nearly 4 years, Blitzen remained the undisputed champion of bus routes. Until Vulp joined in on the fun. At this point, he was already well known in the community and wanted to take even more world records. Bus routes were not fully optimized, and he took his shot. As luck would have it, this was at the time when Vulp still hadn't explored Jato, and so he tried his own spin on the bus route. His first target was the West Coast. Without any particular reason except for a willingness to try something new, he started grinding. While records set by Blitzen were hard, they were far from being impossible. Vulp used a very interesting setup, base only bus. No Jato, only Nitro. As mentioned earlier, it was lighter, and it did wonders, getting impressive results even on the shortest of bus routes. However, the main power of this vehicle was showcased on the longer versions, anything above 10 minutes. With less weight, it's practically unbeatable there. In weeks worth of time, he took almost every record on the West Coast. Almost. Even here Blitzen's skill was shining through, and some of the shorter tracks were unbeatable, at least for the no Jato version. It took Vulp several weeks, but it was done. In addition to the West Coast, He also took half of the East Coast and even managed to grab one record in Italy. Granted, it was the most painful experience. The funniest part is probably the amount of time saved on every record, from 3 to 20 seconds. Impressive, but far from the possible maximum, especially since around 2 years ago devs reduced waiting on stops from 8 to 4 seconds. Just when Vulp switched attention to some of the more interesting aspects of BeamNG, in just 2 weeks every record was taken back, and not by a small amount. Jato just crushed every single record without any viable comeback. Tens of seconds were cut, especially from shorter races. Just look at the comparison between the two runners on 142 Norte Lucera in Italy. Even at the start the difference is huge, but after the first stop the no Jato bus just can't do anything. And so Blitzen took his records back. Once again Jato proved its king. Even the longest routes fell. Base only bus was left in the dust. Nothing beats going from 0 to 100 in just 3 seconds. Bus routes may seem simple, but they demand skill. Every stop, every straightaway, every setup matters. The category is stable. No huge glitches, no rapid changes, and that's part of the charm. Driving them is relaxing. Speedrunning demands focus and precision, and it makes them surprisingly intense. Some might call them boring. I say, go try Italy bus routes yourself, then we'll talk. Thank you for watching. Make sure to hit like, comment and subscribe if you want to support the channel, and I hope to see you in the next one.
403. It counts. Oh baby, it counts. That was really, really shit.